What up, 4 Army? It is me, the doctor is in. I'm back. Hello. It's been a while. I'm sorry again. Let me update you guys on what I've been doing for the last, 3 months or so. Okay, so I know in the last video, I said I was done bulking and I was gonna start cutting. Okay, so what happened there? Well, I'm cutting now. Uh, but at the time of the video, I started to cut and I don't know. I just decided that I wasn't going to cut anymore and I wanted to keep bulking. A few of my friends convinced me I wasn't getting as fat as I thought I was. I think they were blowing smoke up my ass, but it's okay because honestly, this is something I wanted to talk about. If you've been skinny your entire life, like I was, I was a buck 15 soaking wet at 18 years old. If you were like that level of just scrawny, then everything just feels bigger and fatter to you than I guess it does to other people. I don't know if that makes sense, but it like skews your perception of what's fat. Because when I was that skinny, it's not like I was trying like I would actively try to gain weight. And so getting fat just didn't it didn't make sense to me as a thing that could really happen because every time I would try to gain weight, I would gain maybe a few pounds. It would show a little bit, but I wouldn't really get anything past that. And I always had an aversion to getting fat in my head. Like when I saw people who were fat, nothing against those people, but like I would look at them and be like, I really hope I never get like that. And I didn't even know that it was like possible for someone like me. So when you grow up like that, your perception is skewed on what is actually fat. Because if I gained 10 pounds at that size at that time, like that would have been inconceivable to me. Like gaining 10 pounds, I never had the appetite for that. Okay, but now I do. Okay, so everything's different, right? Ever since I started lifting, I've been able to get my appetite up, which is something I want to mention for hard gainers. Okay, if you find it difficult to eat enough to grow, you're thinking about it the wrong way. Okay, so this should be common sense, but for some reason it's not, and it wasn't to me at the time either, so I don't blame you if it's not. Okay, but if you're a hard gainer, especially if you're like a teenager, right, like going through puberty at this time, you when you if you think about it like I need to eat food in order to grow, that's you're putting the cart before the horse. Because the issue is the reason you don't have the appetite that you need is because there's no demands, bodily demands, physiological demands that you're imposing on yourself that would require you to compensate with an increase in food. Meaning a lot of you guys want to get big, but if you want to get big, the training stimulus is what gets you big. The food fuels that process and it allows for enough energy to fuel performance so that you feel good in the gym and to create new tissue. That's true, right? Tissue doesn't just come out of nowhere. You need protein, you need calories, okay? Granted. But if you're having trouble bulking, it's probably got something more to do with your training than just your diet alone, if that makes sense. Because I know that once I started powerlifting and actually getting into strength training, everything was different for me. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to make the topic of this video, is what I did really, really just piss poor when I first started lifting, like very first, when I was a teenager, back in high school. And then comparing that to what I did when I restarted back up halfway through college, and I did a lot of things right. Okay, and it wasn't really that hard. And this information isn't mystic or new. I'm not going to tell you anything that you like. The way I found out how to lift was I looked it up on Google and I found like you guys have probably heard of stronglifts. If you have been lifting for any amount of time, you've probably come across it. And let me tell you, if you have had any doubts in your mind about whether you should start it as a complete beginner, it's gold. As a complete beginner program, it's amazing because it's literally 5 exercises. Okay, it's if I remember correctly, is it 5? Let me see. It's a bench press. It's a bent over row. It's an overhead press. It's a squat. It's a deadlift. Yeah, so just 5 exercises, all with a barbell. Are there going to be muscle groups that you're not going to be working directly with that? Sure, of course. There's going to be tons of muscles you're actually neglecting, okay? Here's the thing. As a beginner, those types of big compound movements, they're going to do so much for you. Even for the muscles that aren't directly being trained, you're going to receive, everything's a stimulus. When you're brand spanking new, everything is going to work. And so what's most important as a beginner when you're just starting out your lifting journey is to be able to find a program that you can stick to for at least 3 to 6 months. And so that is going to be individual because the program is going to have to meet you where you're at. Okay, I didn't have much lifting experience when it came to the big heavy compounds, all using a barbell. So this was a great program to get me started with understanding strength training because it let me focus only on those 5 different exercises, and you would only do 3 of them on any given day, and the workouts would take like 30 minutes. So whereas before, when I first started lifting, okay, back whenever I was a teenager and I just, learned about lifting weights from my friends and everything like that, or my dad, whatever, versus when I started back up in college, it was like I would do like 8 different exercises for the same muscle group in high school, and it would all be pretty much the same stupid bullshit each time, and it was doing nothing for me because I was just trying to chase after certain sensations. I wanted to get as much of a pump as possible. I remember that. And I remember I always wanted to feel as tired and as destroyed as possible when I left the gym. So of course I didn't hit legs, right? Because it's like, fuck that, right? If you're gonna train legs with that type of intensity, like, yeah, you actually are going to die if you train legs with that type of intensity and volume. And so I thankfully had the common sense not to do that because I probably would have hurt myself, okay? So skipping legs, based, skip legs. Nah, but for real, when I started back up and I started strength training and I was focusing on the squat, bench, deadlift, row, overhead press, it was 3 sets of 5, I believe. Yeah, literally 3 sets of 5 on everything. And then the deadlifts, he said to do 1 set of 5. So I only did 1 set of 5 on those. And I had that same mindset at the time before I started of like, this is a little bit weird. This doesn't seem like much. Does anyone actually grow on this? And but then I tried it and I realized, yeah, the most important thing is intensity, right? And as a beginner, you just need something that will teach you intensity, but give you the space to, like I couldn't handle the program that I'm doing right now as a beginner. You know what I mean? My fitness level wasn't there yet. Not only my fitness level, but I didn't know what I was doing. So the lifts were psychologically scary to me because the technique was weird. I had bad joints from swimming. Like my left shoulder has dislocated 80 billion times. I don't have a labrum. It's bucket handled. Like if I did something wrong, I could dislocate my shoulder so easily. Like shit like that. I had to really figure out and fine tune my technique. Now, how would I have had any time to do that if I was doing 12 exercises every workout and I was trying to go 6 days a week, right? If you're gonna do 12 different exercises, that alone right there, without warm-ups, without anything, is gonna take at least 50 minutes to an hour, okay? When you include all the warm-ups, when you include all of the practice sets, like I said, when you're a beginner, you're gonna be doing so many goddamn practice sets that aren't gonna be doing anything for hypertrophy. It's just so you can get used to it, so you can feel good doing it, so you can learn the skill of lifting, because it is a skill. Lifting is a general skill. Okay, like there's certain things that all lifters do on all lifts that just kind of apply across the board. And they're not like rocket science things. It doesn't take a genius to figure them out, but it's things that you have to pay attention to when you start, or you just won't do it. You won't be in the habit. Things like bracing, I can't tell you how many times I've trained people, and the very first thing that I'll see them do is they'll start breathing more on the way down as the weight gets as they start getting closer to failure on their set, right? So I have to explain it. I have to tell them, hey, put it at the top, take your whole breath there, brace your abs, and then go for it. You're gonna be a lot more stable. Okay, so just little things like that. You just learn your own body mechanics through focusing on big compound movements and not killing yourself with all of these different exercises. So you really have just time and energy to just focus on those things. Now, this works for the setting yourself up for what I call good, intrinsic motivators. Okay, intrinsic motivators, sorry, what I call them. They're just intrinsic motivators. That's already a term. Okay, so intrinsic motivators are things that obviously they come from inside, right? Not from outside. So everybody knows that in order to stick to anything, in order to become, habitualized in anything, you have to have an intrinsic motivation to do so. It cannot just be external pressures that are pulling you in that direction. You need some sort of push from within. Okay, most of the time, that intrinsic motivation in most humans comes from a feeling of competence. Okay, so basically, when you feel like you've mastered a skill, when you feel like you're getting better at something and you're actively improving, that improves your self-esteem, that increases your sense of mastery, and that right there is what intrinsically motivates you to keep doing it. Okay, because it now feels like something that's becoming a part of you. It becomes a part of your identity, and now when you continue to perform that thing that you're doing, it's no longer like a chore, it's an expression of who you are. Okay, if that makes sense. So you want to get to that level, but you can't get to that level always playing outside of your capabilities. Meaning, if you're constantly giving yourself a challenge that is too much for what you can do, you're going to be reinforcing failure in your psychology, and that's what's going to lead you off the path. Okay, so you need to be reinforcing success in your psychology, and that's what leads to growth. So something that I did really, really well with just focusing on the basic compounds and keeping my volume, keeping everything, like the number of exercises, even the workout times, keeping them very short and only working out 3 times a week. What that allowed me to do was it allowed me to make mental progress and pay more attention to my mental progress in the short term than the physical progress. Meaning, if I got better at squatting, I could see myself get better at squatting from workout to workout. Okay, you're not going to see your quad go from skinny to Jay Cutler from workout to workout. That's not what happens. Okay, so what I'm saying is the amount that you can improve skill-wise when it comes to anything in fitness, like literally everything, almost everything in fitness comes down to just like basic skills that aren't rocket science, but just kind of you should practice them. Like you need to practice them to get good at them. All of these things are skills. Okay, and if you can make visible gains on the skill aspect, you're going to reinforce your sense of mastery. It's going to intrinsically motivate you to take it past that 1, 2, or 3 month mark. Because to be honest, guys, like to get a reasonably like good physique that you will like in the mirror when you see yourself without a shirt, that other people will even give you compliments on and tell you that you look like a different person, that's not that far away. Like that takes maybe 3 to 6 months. Like 3 if you're a very good responder to the gym, you know what I mean? Probably more closer to 6 months if you're somebody like me who takes a little bit longer and is a hard gainer, right? But that's not that much time. When you think about it, 6 months is not that much time. But who's going to do 6 months of suffering and feeling like they're not good at something? Who's going to do 6 months of that? Nobody. Right? So in this sense, fitness is a little bit different from the other things that you have gotten good at in your life. So if I'm speaking to you and you're watching this video, it means that, maybe, so you might be like me, you might just be into fitness and you might just be watching this to hear somebody else's thoughts on this stuff. And that's cool. But if you're watching this for advice, it means that you haven't gotten good at fitness yet. And that's cool because getting good at fitness is typically something we do when we're like at a lame point in our life. So like what you're good at, what I'm trying to say is what you're good at is probably cooler than what I'm good at. Okay? So what I want you to think about is how did you get good at that thing? What did you do? What was the process of improvement like? You know what I mean? I want you to think back to your journey. Like let's say you're good at playing the guitar or something. All right? Because I remember I grew up playing the piano. That's my thing. When I was 4 years old, I started playing the piano. And I fell in love with it at a young age because of how good I got initially. That was one of those things that clicked with me. I was bad at practicing it as I got older, and that led to me not liking it as much because if you don't practice, your performance is not as good as you want, and you can't just get by with talent anymore. So I was unsatisfied with that. But that's kind of my point, right? Is I didn't feel good at it, so I stopped liking it. But I was always kind of that's like the one thing that I'm like pretty talented at. But If you are good at an instrument, if you are really good at school, if you are really good at building stuff, cars, anything, math, whatever, I don't care. If you're good at anything, you had to go through periods of time where not only were you challenged, but you remember being able to overcome those challenges and see significant improvement. And those moments probably stuck with you. Like, if you're being honest with yourself, you've had real moments of improvement that have a core place in your ego that let you know that you are a person that is capable of learning something and executing it and getting it done. Right? So fitness is no different from that, but it's kind of unique in the sense that the results that we're after initially with fitness is physical, but those come a little bit later than the skills that are actually important to learn, which are mental. Okay, so for example, something like dieting. You know, I got up to almost 200 pounds when I was powerlifting. Okay, I was pushing really close because I wanted to eventually get to like a 600-pound deadlift. I eventually realized that was stupid, and it was not worth, you know, being that unhealthy just to hit that number a little bit faster. So I kind of stopped. Okay, but at the time, I was very intrinsically motivated by just the idea of getting stronger. So that's what kept me going. And so as I put more weight on the bar, it really felt good. Like every single week, because I was following the conjugate system, I was following the West Side methods, which preached that exact thing. It's like the most important thing is psychological. You have to be hitting maxes every week in order to keep you on program. And so that's what I was doing. I was hitting maxes every week, and I was improving on everything because I knew how to rotate my exercises, but keep the variations similar enough to have transfer. And so I was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Let me tell you what, guys, I was not building muscle at this nearly the same rate as I was building strength. It was like strength was like this, muscle was like this, and then fat was like this. Okay, so the strength kind of ended up in the middle. Okay, so you see how that works? But I had developed enough confidence in my ability to change my body composition and to produce a training result that when it came time to diet all of that off, I did it with zero problems. I went from 200 pounds all the way down to 127 pounds, 128 pounds, from like 35% body fat down to like 10% or less body fat within the span of like 9 to 10 months, okay? And it was not difficult for me. I went right through it, no issues whatsoever. It was like 5 pounds a week at first, and then it slowed. It was like 2 pounds a week, and then, you know, by the end it was like half a pound a week. But I did everything perfectly. Now, why am I saying this, okay? It's because I want to make it very clear. Just because I'd never done that type of weight loss before doesn't mean that I didn't have the skill of fitness. Okay, my body at the time didn't represent what I knew. Okay, I was so deep into it at that point. I knew a lot about nutrition just from all of the research that I was doing, and you know, I took it the opposite way. So I know that, you know, if I wanted to lose weight, I just have to do the opposite of what I did, right? But regardless of any of that, I had developed a proficiency with a skill mentally, which was tracking my macros, understanding protein, understanding micronutrients, and how to have a filling diet that, you know, gives you everything that you need while you're restricting calories. Okay, I learned how to do that far before I actually got shredded. But then now you see the result here is that I got shredded, right? But that wasn't me becoming skilled while I was dieting. I already had that skill mentally, okay? And so the reason why I was able to go from that place of being just ridiculously obese to almost dick skin shredded, the reason why I was able to do that so smoothly with no backslides, and then I haven't rebounded since then, right? I've been gaining weight gradually since then on the bulk. The reason why I was able to do that and so many people fail at that is because I did not feel like I was fighting a body that wouldn't listen to me. I did not feel like I was doing an uphill battle or struggling or straining against something that it didn't understand. For me, it was just a matter of revealing what I knew to be true, okay? I was revealing more muscle mass. That was cool. So that helped as well, because as I was getting leaner, I was looking better and better. A lot of people who are just fat with no muscle, I hate to break it to you guys, but you are like, if you don't have your training dialed in right from the start, which I hope you do, okay? So that That being said, I hope you do have your training dialed in from the start, because if you do and you listen to all my advice right off the bat, you're not going to worry about this. But people who just do a bunch of fat loss and don't have any muscle underneath look not so good in the first couple, phases of that fat loss, because you're just losing a bunch of water weight, so you look flatter, and you're losing some fat too, and so you look smaller, but like you don't have any shape underneath, so it's like it just feels like you got a long way to go. Whereas for me, every single, like even at 200 pounds, I was still like had muscle. Like I wasn't just like a complete fat slob. Like I was, but I didn't look like your typical fat slob. Like every single percentage of body fat that I was dropping off, I was looking progressively better and better because I had muscle underneath that I was revealing. So it was something that I could chase after. Okay, so if that makes sense to you guys. So all that being said, that's something to think about. Okay, that's something to chew on when you guys are, if you guys are hard gainers and you're trying to bulk up, or if you guys are, have a struggle with appetite and you're trying to diet down or whatever. Okay, you have to think about it like, you can't think about it like, oh, I need to eat this way so that I look a certain way. It's more, I need to do certain things to look a certain way, and then I need to eat to be able to support that. Like the food is something that enables me to do that. So that way it's not something like, oh, like you're being forced to do something. No, it's like you're being enabled to do something. Does that make sense? You have to think about it like that. Like I'm being enabled to train the way I want to by eating enough protein, for example, by getting enough carbs, by getting enough sleep, things like that. Okay. And when you're not training hard, your body just won't give you won't have a reason to eat. Okay. So that's a big important thing. But you won't be able to train hard unless you develop the skills necessary to train hard first. And so developing those skills necessary to train hard won't look to other people like you're training hard, because you'll be training hard for you. But those skills that you're building are going to transfer forward and allow you to keep training harder and harder. And then before you know it, after 6 months, all of a sudden now you look like you know what you're doing. When you really knew what you were doing the whole entire time, you just didn't look like it. Okay, so you have to get out of your head this idea of like appearance equaling skill or ability or what you know. Okay, no, you have everything you need. You just need to apply it consistently for a long period of time, and all of a sudden people will be asking you for advice when you knew all this shit right away. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so that's that. I don't really want to say anything more about that. I do want to come back around to what I've been doing for the last 3 months on this bulk. I've been running an upper lower split like I told you guys. To be a little bit more specific, I was focusing primarily on my chest and my upper back and my shoulders. But going forward, I'm going to be going through a bicep and lower lat phase. Like I really want some more biceps and I really want some more lower lats. So that's going to be involving a lot of preacher curls for the biceps, as well as just regular old standing dumbbell or barbell curls, rope curls on the machine too. You want to use different resistance profiles in your training because of its effects on fatigue, and also because different ranges will stimulate more different regions of a particular muscle group. So it's good to have a good balance of both so that you get both adaptations. So when I'm doing preacher curls, that's like a very like lengthened bias movement, like the moment arm, when I get to about right here, especially because I lean back on them, it's so great at this point, and my bicep is pretty lengthened there. It's pretty fatiguing, so I don't do preachers every single time. Sometimes I'll do like a machine preacher instead because the resistance curve is a little bit different. Or I'll do a rope curl, or I'll do a dumbbell curl. So don't overthink these things, but at the same time, don't underthink them. Does that make sense? You see how I'm thinking about that there? And then I'm going to be putting those first because I really want biceps. Okay, it's as simple as that. If you guys want a body part to get bigger, just put it first. Okay, or give it its own day, right? If you can fit it in. Like for like, remember I was telling you on the last program video about the forearm days that I was doing. Yeah, so that really helped because I was specializing in the forearms and I could hit them on my off days and really not have any fatigue at all. And that really brought those up. Okay, but if I were to do that again, I would probably just do them on my upper days and just put them first. Just because I like you know, I like training them now. So it's not a big deal where it's like I have to like, okay, time for forms. Like it's exciting for me to train forms. And same thing with calves. If I want calves, which I do, so they're kind of come first on my leg days. And then I'm going to be following those up with a lot of frontal plane pull downs. Now, like I said, this might help some of you guys with injuries. I have a completely torn labrum and my shoulder can pop out if I do the wrong thing too explosively in the wrong position. Overhead stuff, particularly with a wide grip, is a very compromising position for me. So the way that you guys are going to see me do my wide grip pull downs for my lower lats is going to be a lot less optimal than I would like. Why? I'm going to have to use higher reps. I'm going to have to go slower. I'm going to have to generate more fatigue. I'm going to have to use lighter weight. Okay? That's fine. I'm still going to get motor unit recruitment towards the end of a hard set, and I'm still going to get mechanical tension, and my lats are still going to grow. All that means is I will be generating more fatigue than you with your healthy shoulder doing it the normal way, where you go heavy for 4 to 6. Okay? So understand there's context to everything. Don't overthink these things. Don't underthink them. If you have an injury, don't be a dickhead about it. But also, don't be a doomer. Don't say, oh, yeah, I hurt, I can't train optimally, so I can't grow. No, shut up. Train it anyways. That's where the kind of like meathead bro personality type thing needs to, you know, come into play with all of the rational approaches that you take with your training, all of the science-based, evidence-based, whatever you want to call it, those buzzwords, I fucking hate them, but you get the point. They need to combine in that way where you need to understand, on one hand, you can't be a pussy if something isn't working, like if you can't do something optimally, don't be a pussy, do it anyways. At the same time, if you can do something optimally and you're choosing not to, you're an R word, okay? So, with all that being said, I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening to me ramble for another 30 minutes. I'm looking forward to the comments saying that my videos need to be shorter again. I agree. Somebody get me to fucking write a script for me, or somehow get me to stop fucking yapping and going on tangents every other second. And then maybe that'll happen, okay? Thank you guys. Goodbye.